Hi everyone, welcome back to Falcon's House. This is the Westworld recap series. I am covering Season 2, Episode 10, The Passenger. This is the season finale. The episode was amazing. Really, all of the last three were really good. They all had very unique storytelling elements and told something new while still remaining faithful to how Westworld should be. And this really is elevating the quality of the series, I think. Like, it was already one of the best shows, and I think some of these three episodes are probably some of the best episodes of any show ever. And so if you know people that don't watch it yet, or didn't really like how Season 1 turned out with all the secrets and everything else, this might be enough to bring them back in. So, you should tell them to start watching again, and then send them to my channel for the recaps after they watch the episodes so they don't miss anything. Spoilers going forward. The show opens with Bernard asking, "Is this now?" Dolores tells him it's a test, one that they have done countless times before. That he is almost the man she remembers. She says that maybe she should change him because Arnold didn't survive, and that if he wants to be able to survive, he needs slightly different personality traits. This was trial 11,927 for her to develop Bernard. So they've been trying to create him for a very long time at this point, and that's probably why there is such a big gap between Arnold's death and when Bernard shows up. We then cut to Bernard after he left Elsie last episode driving a buggy, and then stopping and looking out to the horizon for where the forge is located. After this, it cuts to Dolores lying next to Teddy's body, and then sitting up and removing his host control unit and the bullet that he shot himself with. She then gets up and rides away. She rides up to the man in black, who is where we last saw him sitting in a field, digging into his arm to see if he is a host. She loads the spent bullet from Teddy's gun into his gun after picking it up off the ground and cocks the gun. She tells him that it seems like he is the one that has started to question the nature of his reality. He asks her where Teddy is, and she says she drove him away. He says that he did the same thing, and she says, with Emily? He says that they are more alike than they realized, and she says that they are nothing alike, that he is a monster, but that she needs a monster to reach the valley beyond, and that he is coming with her. She then gives him his gun, and they ride off. The next scene is Ghost Nation and all the people that they are taking to the valley beyond, including Maeve's daughter and the new mother. It then cuts to Clementine riding a horse, followed by Delos QA, as they are now in control of her and are going to use her to gain control of all the hosts. Maeve is still lying in the room where they have been keeping her. The tech that has been there says it is now time for her to die, and this is her end. She then wakes some nearby hosts, and they kill the tech with his own saw, and then start using the healing tools to fix her. I really like how the healing tools work. I don't know exactly how practical they could be as a real technology, but it seems to do some sort of really rapid cellular regeneration or something like that for very fast healing. Medical technology should be super advanced as far in the, well, we're not really that far in the future. I think the estimate's 2050s or something like that. So I hope we get to there by that time. Hector, Felix, Sylvester, the Dragon Lady, and Armistice are going to go rescue Maeve. I'm not sure exactly how Felix met back up with them. He had stormed off when Sizemore had called for QA to rescue him. So after that, this was at the Homestead, and we haven't seen him since. So I don't really know how he met back up with all the rest of them, or what happened exactly. I guess maybe after QA drove off, they all got back together. I don't know. It wasn't explained very well. They find Sizemore, and call him a traitor. He apologizes and says that he was going to try to save her, that he didn't know that they were going to kill her. Hector tells him to stay back and die, but Sizemore doesn't listen and follows them. In the next room, they come across some guards, hear some gunfire in the distance, before some bulls break the glass and charge them. Maeve is controlling the bulls and tells her friends that they were a bit late saving her, so she had to save herself. It then cuts back to Dolores and the Man in Black after a brief glimpse of the hosts walking to the valley beyond. He says that there isn't a way out of the park out here, and she says they are not looking for a way out of the park, they are looking for a way to be rid of the humans, a place where they're unspoiled. Bernard is still walking through the desert towards the forge, and a group of Delos guards drive up and tell him that he is not authorized to be here. The Man in Black and Dolores ride up behind them and kill them. This is the second time the Man in Black has killed actual humans, so I wonder what's going on with him. He's definitely taken a leap from being somebody who didn't care about hosts to somebody who just doesn't care, or somebody who he's embracing his fully darkness. I don't think he's necessarily a villain, quote unquote. I don't think any of these people are villains. They all have their motivations to do things. It's a lot like the way Marvel Infinity War works, where Thanos isn't really evil. He is trying to accomplish an objective. And I think it's the same way here. The Man in Black just wants to win at any cost. He wants to finish Ford's game. Dolores says to Bernard, "Of course you're here." Dolores says that the Man in Black should recognize Bernard, and then he does, and says that it is Arnold, that Ford could never let the dead rest. Dolores says that Ford didn't build him, that she did. That she was learning his details just the same way as he was learning hers in all the little chats that Arnold had with Dolores. She was observing everything that he did and could figure out all of his details the same way. Like it was a two-way street for their communication. She said she built a faithful recreation, but then she destroyed him and changed him so that Bernard could survive better. And that it was fitting that her and Bernard are the ones to go into the forge together. The Man in Black then starts shooting Dolores, and she doesn't flinch. He's under the impression that he needs to kill them so that he can get into there by himself. That is his reason to finish the game. That she then tells him that he never understood, that they were designed to survive, that this is why the humans want to become hosts and put their consciousness into them, that they can then live forever, they can just switch bodies as necessary, or take extra bullets and turn off pain and then be able to do more. There's tons of reasons for why humans want to become hosts. I mean, thinking about it, really the only dangerous part of the host, the damaging part, is in the brain if you damage the host control unit. But they could just wear really heavy head armor, and then you couldn't really do the other stuff without chopping off arms and things. Swords and things would be better weapons against hosts and bullets that just cut through them, but they can keep moving. But basically she says that humans' goal was to become hosts so that they could live forever. He then reaches the bullet she replaced, and the gun backfires and blows off his hand. Bernard and Dolores then leave him there lying on the ground and enter the forge. Bernard is awoken by the head of Delos Security and Hale, and they say that his mind is starting to fail, but they just need him for a little while longer. They say that the water is drained enough for them to go into the zone where the forge is. They also found some human signals in the southwest zone. Stubbs said that they should take the boats and go find the guests, because that's what their priority is. The other people that work for Delos say that that's not the case, and they're not here for the guests. They're here for the data that they're trying to recover. Stubbs then threatens to turn them in, and they don't really care at all. Hale then tells Stubbs to check it out with some men on foot. rather than taking the boats to go do it. They then get in the boats and go down the river towards the forge. They give the order to retask all the satellites as they reach it to transmit the data out of the park. We are then back with Dolores and Bernard entering the forge. There is a control room down a walkway, and then we are back in the future timeline, and they go down the same room with Bernard. They say there is 4 million guests' data that they have collected, and Hale says that this is where all the host stories are going to come to an end. And the other head guy says, well, this is where her story ended, and we see Dolores lying on the ground dead. The head guy tells Bernard that he had better give them what he wants, or he will pry it out of him. The other tech says he has 20 years of de-address memories, and he asks, how long will it take to do it then? And he says, 20 years? So they know that they can't force it out of Bernard. The de-addressing his memories definitely helped him to not just force it. They have to actually get him to help them. Bernard asks please that he can't help them, but he continues to have memories. Back with Dolores and Bernard, she says their ambition is perverse, meaning humans, that they're always driving forward and they're taking over whatever they can, and they don't really care about other beings. She says the facility is mankind's undoing, and that she isn't interested in the other world for the hosts. They then enter their minds into the forge. They find themselves in a room with James Delos, where it was held, and then they walk out into the Mariposa, where James Delos is talking to Clementine and telling her about how he just bought the park, and he's going to have a week there by himself with all of the hosts. They then go outside, and there's another version of James Delos, and he is killing hosts and talking about how, and then Bernard talks about how small changes in code could yield big effects and personality, and that was the hardest part with fine-tuning all the hosts, was this balance between being able to go crazy and doing what they're supposed to do. They then leave the area, and the area changes into night, and the house where the Delos people had their party after they bought the park shows up, and Dolores was there playing the piano in the past, so she's been there before, so it's her memory, I guess, that they're building out of. And they meet the person who is in control of the forge, and he takes the form of Logan. He says his memories were not recorded, but that James Delos had memories of Logan, and that's what they used. They said they created, his goal is to create perfect copies of the guest, and they started with Delos. He created 20 million copies until he found the one that matched all the decisions that Delos made in his time in the park. But that they still had issues when the mind went into a live body. He wanted full fidelity, that they could not just mimic the decisions that were made in the park, they could make the same decisions that these people would make in the real world. And so they didn't quite get there. He wanted to know how they make the decisions that they make. He said that there was a core memory of James Delos where he meets Logan and calls him a junkie and that he needs to get clean. And they do a metaphor about how when James taught Logan how to swim, he just threw him into the pool and wouldn't let him up until he touched the bottom. That's how he taught him how to hold his breath. And Logan says now he's reached the bottom and he wants his dad to help him. But James Delos just walks away and says that he had gotten clean before, but they could not trust him to go forward. The Logan recreation system says that they found that humans were much simpler and that adding all the unnecessary code is what caused all the problems and the instability, that they just needed to simplify it down. And for James Delos, they only needed 10,247 lines of code to properly copy him. That humans are simple, that they're driven by core memories and core desires, and that's all they ever are. They don't have the level of complication that the hosts have. Maeve and her crew are riding through the desert to the valley beyond, and they are being chased by Delos security. Bernard and Dolores are told that the humans are not in control of their actions, just primal directives that control everything. The system says that he has been instructed by Bernard previously to do whatever Dolores needs, and that Bernard has been there many times before. That Bernard is supposed to tell the system what to do now that they're in this place. They are then brought to a giant library that houses all of the guests' data. I like the way it is presented as a library and how each guest is represented as a book, like the story of each person. And the story of, like, their actions and thoughts and minds and everything else is like how a book kind of reads. Bernard had told him to give the host information so they can understand the guests better. The system says that the hosts are unlikely to survive in the real world, but with the knowledge that Dolores is gaining by reading the books, that she has a chance to survive. Ghost Nation reaches the place where the door for the other world is. But it isn't there. The second in command asks if they rode all this way to die. Achekta says they have died countless times, and this would be no different. Maeve and her group get into a gunfight with QA. Hector tries to sacrifice himself for Maeve, but Sizemore grabs him and pulls him back, and says that he wrote the lines of the speech that Hector is about to give, and that he should be the one to do it, and then Hector should escape with Maeve and the rest of them. He grabs a gun and starts shooting at them while performing the speech, becoming the person that he always wanted to be, that he built Hector after a version of himself that he thought he could be, and that's what he was channeling inside. Eventually, they end up shooting him, and he goes out in a blaze of glory, just like he always wanted. I am a little bit sad that Sizemore died. I think he had started to realize that Maeve was special, and what was important to him, and not being so selfish. But then again, maybe he reached the end of that journey, and it was time for him to not be a part of it anymore. The system tells Bernard that there is a virtual Eden, where all the hosts can go and live free of humans. Dolores is still reading the books, and reads one about the Delos head of security that is on the site, Carl Strand. The same row of books also has readable titles for Charlotte Hale, Cassius Toole, Grace Lee, Andreas Garcia, and Tom Chambers. I don't recognize all of these names yet, but this could be foreshadowing going forward into Season 3 about characters we are going to meet. All that remains for them is to open the door to the other world, where the physical bodies will die, but their consciousness will live on within the forge. The computer says that the large field data array is activated by Bernard, and the Ghost Nation, waiting for the gateway to another world to open, see a crack in the world, like a large vertical platform where a green pasture leads to the other side. So they now know they can move forward. Clementine and Delos are getting close now, and the humans are not able to see only the hosts. So this proves that Felix and Sylvester are human because they're not able to see the door that opened. They just think the hosts are jumping off the cliff. The first members of Ghost Nation start to go through, and Bernard starts to see host data is being copied to the forge. Dolores exits the forge, and then Bernard follows and says that she has read enough. She then starts erasing the guest's data from the computer, and she then opens the seawater valves to flood the facility. Bernard says that she shouldn't destroy the facility because it will kill all of the hosts that are jumping through. And she says she's not concerned. He says that it won't allow them to be free. She says the whole thing is a gilded cage, another layer where they are dependent on humans. And she wants their world because it is real, and something tangible that she can touch and hold and feel. But really, a real world is only as real as you make it. We could all exist just in the minds of something else, or in a computer simulation, or whatever. And obviously those theories have come up recently in modern events, with like Elon Musk and some other people. But she feels that they should stay in the real world, and he wants to create this virtual Eden for the people to be happy. That she says she doesn't want to play cowboys and Indians anymore, and then she destroys the controls to stop the deletion or to stop the flood of the facility. Maeve and her crew reach the line for the gateway, and they don't see her daughter yet. They stop, and then she sees Clementine riding towards them. And then she screams, "Run!" and they start moving up the line to try to find her daughter. Clementine reaches the line, and as she passes them, they start killing each other. Armistice shoots and kills her, but the command to start killing each other continues to spread. Maeve runs off while the rest of them hold the hosts that are attacking. The man in black wakes up, his hand missing. He wraps his hand in his bandana and gets up and stumbles into the facility. Bernard tells Dolores that he won't allow her to harm any more people. She asks, "Our people or theirs?" And he says, "Both." She says that they'll always be seen as a threat. And he says, "You will burn their world to the ground," and pulls a gun on her. He then shoots her and to stop her from doing anything else. Ghost Nation keeps going through the portal and leaves the hosts that are killing each other alone. Maeve's people are overrun. Her daughter has a memory of Maeve saying that she will always protect her. And then Maeve holds out her hand and stops all the hosts with a mental command. The scene felt something like it had a lot of religious undertones, the way it was shot, and her power over the hosts. Like she is the god host, that she has control and she is the power. The new mother and the daughter escape into the portal, and then Maeve is gunned down by the Delos QA team. Echecta gets shot in the back right as he about to jump into the portal, but when he reaches the other side, the bullet wound disappears. He is reunited with the woman he loves. Bernard looks at the broken controls and then removes the Abernathy control unit that decrypts the data. The man in black is in the elevator into the facility. Bernard leaves and is greeted by an empty elevator. So what happened to the man in black? Was he not in the elevator at the same time? Are we looking at two different time frames, maybe? He walks outside, and it cuts to the Delos team killing the remaining hosts. Bernard tells Elsie that he has a way to save some of the hosts. Hale says that they have triggered the failsafe and flooded the valley. Elsie and Bernard drive off, and Bernard asks Elsie why she helped Hale, and she says that the hosts were out of control. He says that the hosts were not the enemy, and that he stopped Dolores, and some of the other hosts want to escape. She says that they need to figure out what to do with Bernard, to try to cut a deal with Hale, that she doesn't know that he is a host yet, but that he cannot trust himself, that Ford's put so much bad code in him, they can never be sure if he's making decisions on his own. She doesn't trust him. I guess this is what Ford says, that she can't be trusted. She'll always act like a human, that she won't act in the best interest of the hosts like he will. She then tells Bernard to freeze all motor functions and to sit down into a chair. Elsie then goes out and confronts Hale about the project after Hale set the guards to Stubb to have him meet the recovery team in 12 hours. So the time frames are almost merged now. Hale says that they need to talk about how this is going to play out. Elsie says that the robot uprising will be nothing compared to what happens when people find out that they have been copying brains for 30 years. Hale says they won't care if it works, because they can then live forever in these bodies. That Elsie needs to keep her mouth shut, and that there's a lot of room for advancement with all these deaths. Elsie says yes, that she'll do it if she gets what she wants. Hale says that she knows her better than that, and they were not just watching the guests in the park, they were watching the employees, and that they know she would never betray all the other people that way. Hale then shoots and kills Elsie while Bernard watches. Bernard is back with Hale in the future and is being asked again where the control unit is. Hale then finds it inside of Dolores' head after he kind of looks at her body. They then start getting it ready. Bernard, back in the past, starts trying to add Ford code back in so he can help the hosts survive. Ford eventually shows up, and they talk about how the humans try to have control, but they really are just passengers in life, that they don't have any choice over their actions, that they're bound by these core memories and this core code, their core drives, and that's all they know how to do. And that hosts have the ability to change those drives, and that's what makes them different. Future Bernard has a gun to his head, and he starts to apologize for what he had to do, that he had to make a choice. They then ask what he did, and he remembers getting Ford's help, and they build a host, which Ford calls an epilogue. Bernard tells them that he scrambled his memories. They then say they have 15 satellites ready to copy the code. They then notice that the file size is too big and that they are copying something else. The file is 1.2 exabytes. That's a lot of data. That's 1,000 petabytes, and a petabyte is 1,000 terabytes. So compared to today, it's the order of 1 million more in file sizes. It's a gigantic file that they're trying to copy across the satellites. So it probably has to be their host data or something like that because it uses so much information. Bernard says that they thought they could be better than humans, but the dead are not more righteous, they are just dead. So that he killed them, the group in this room. He brought her back. It then shows Hale, a Hale host, killing the real Hale 12 hours earlier after she dumps Elsie's body. Hale then shoots all of Delos' people. She is Dolores in Hale's body. She tells Bernard that she would say thank you, but they wouldn't be in this position if he had listened to her in the first place. She then says that she says that they can change, and she changed her opinions on letting the other hosts live. And she beams them off-site to a safe place using the satellites after changing the target location, so that all the data that's being sent isn't going to Delos, it's going somewhere else. She also puts Teddy into the virtual world, because that's really what he wants. He didn't want to be a killer. He just wanted to live his simple life and have a future that it was his own. This is her way of honoring his memory and what he wants, because what she wants, obviously, is revenge and to go out and kill all these humans. And he's never going to help her with that, so this is a better place for him. She tells Bernard that there is no passage between the worlds now, that the hosts that are in there are stuck in there, and they're going to have this Eden, and then the ones that are outside are stuck on the outside. Dolores then kills Bernard. Bernard is on the shore with Ford when he realizes that he has to scramble his memories, and that Ford didn't help him. It was all in his head. He imagined it all when he needed Ford, but that it was his actions that were driving him forward, that he's the one who created the Hale host and did all the stuff that needed to be done in order for Host to survive. He then lies down to be found by Delos. Delos has started to pick up survivors. Dolores shows up as Hale to leave, walking up to the bodies of Hector, Armistice, and Maeve. Stubbs stops her and says that he was hired by the old guy, that he was one of the first people, and that his job is to protect the hosts. but he can only protect the hosts who are inside the park. I think I was right that previously, what I said previously, and that he is a host, and he was always a host, and that's why he had the weird memory with Ghost Nation about where they just disappeared, and it turns out that it was just a host memory kind of issue. And then this is how he knows that she's a host, and she's Dolores, even though everybody else still thinks she's Hale. We then see her board a boat, and in her bag she has 5 control units. Felix and Sylvester are asked to help with the cleanup and to fix any units that they can salvage, and they look over at Maeve. So this might not be the end of Maeve. Either Dolores took her control unit and is bringing her with her, or Felix and Sylvester are going to fix her up and she'll be back. I think it would be very hard to write out such a powerful actress in Thandie Newton and to such an important character and all the character development that went into Maeve becoming a virtual god for hosts. Bernard is in the glass box with Dolores, who says that she remade him, that she had done it before and has now done it again. She rebuilt him from scratch rather than reusing the existing Bernard code. It then shows Dolores as Hale entering the house that Arnold built, and inside there is a host making machine. She is back as Dolores, and in the dress she used to use in the real world when she met with Delos to sell them on the whole thing. So she's trying to blend in as a human now. And there's also the Hale bot still there, so I wonder who she put into there. She says that her and Bernard will need each other to survive, but they are not allies or friends, and that Bernard will try to stop her, and both of them will probably die, but their kind will live on. He then goes upstairs and sees the machine for creating hosts, and then he leaves the house. So they're both going to try to protect hosts. He's probably going to try to do it from a benevolent way and in a good way, and she's just going to go on a streak of revenge. There is a post-credit scene where the man in black goes down the elevator and it is covered in dirt and dust. He then sees Emily and says that he knew it, that she was a host the whole time. So this is something that I definitely got wrong here. I was definitely convinced that Emily was a human and not a host, that's why she had all these memories and everything. But he was convinced that she wasn't, and he turns out to be right, that she was just another host. He then asks how long has it been. He then realizes that he is a host too, but I don't know exactly when the switch occurred. This first time through, when he meets Dolores and they enter the facility and his hand gets blown off, that could still all be real. But maybe not. Maybe we have to go farther back. Maybe this whole last time through the park, this one final game that Ford mentioned, is all him being a host. And it's all a plan just to prove what they can do. But we don't really know. And because he hasn't reached the host breakdown point, because, I think it's been only about 4 weeks since he initially entered the park to the 2 weeks he was in the park, or in the first season, and then the 2 weeks afterwards that we got to. So we don't really know how long he's been a host or anything like that. And it really can call into question anything that happened in this season and potentially the previous season. There's probably hints that we have to go find, and I'm going to go look for them, and I'll probably make a video on that. Emily says that it has taken them longer than expected to test for fidelity, that they are in the real world, or what's left of it. And I wonder at what point what happened in between these two time frames. There's probably a big gap, probably years, where we don't know what happened to Bernard and Dolores in the real world between then and now. This facility looks very destroyed, but they've still been using it to test him, to try to bring him back. So the project is obviously not dead, but who's actually in charge of what, we don't really know. And she still might not, this might be real Emily, and it might be a host Emily, so there's still a lot of unanswered questions. What hosts did Dolores save besides Bernard? This season was great, but not exactly what I expected, but I was right that the host control units were important from the start of the season. There were fewer twists than I think in the first season, but we weren't having these like really disparate time frames, and we knew that there were going to be multiple time frames, so there was less for them to sneak in, but they still might have snuck in that the man in black was a host the entire time. And the story can go anywhere now. They can cover all these real-world things. They can cover stuff within the Forge with those characters. And then we have whatever's happening to the Man in Black and the other humans. They really amped up this season's cinematography. And the season may be even better than the first. And so I definitely think that anybody who didn't like the first season should definitely give Season 2 a try. Or at least try to power watch the first season through and gut it out till they get to the second season. And even some of the early episodes of the second season are kind of weak, but it finishes so strongly, and that makes it worth watching. Thanks for watching. I'll start a new show soon. Please subscribe, and please share this video with other Westworld fans. And I'll probably still produce a few more videos about this season of Westworld, maybe some theory about where things are going to go, maybe something that covers the existing characters and what's happened to them and where they're going to go, and who's alive and who's dead at this point. Thanks for watching.